Hello everybody, Grant Keene here again. I never thought I would make another one of these videos about the city of Walhalla and their situation with their water. But then there was a meeting last night at City Hall, special meeting. It was kept incredibly quiet until it was discovered right at the end that they were meeting. And anyhow, I was encouraged to go up to it and whatnot. I said, no, I've said my piece. I've told the truth. People know. Even the liberal establishment that hates me so, they know the truth. But I did look in on it, and so it was filmed. The news media was there. Fox Carolina was there. And so I watched somewhat of it, and I thought, well, okay, they've met together you got to address it. I mean, people in the city and the county are up in arms. They had their kids sent home from high school because the high school was out without water. What was that, Friday or Thursday, perhaps? And then just prior to that, the whole town was without water. It's ongoing that constantly people have low water pressure, and lines are bursting, brown water. You try to wash white clothes and they're brown. You know, a fellow out on Wolf Steak, he's got a young family. He's put in a super water filtration system, costs him a fortune. He continues to have to replace expensive filters, and yet still he barely has any water pressure. You got to address it. So at last, okay, I'm gone. So it's not my problem anymore, thank God. And so they're going to address it. So I'm curious, what are they going to address? Well, so they got together. David Underwood had told me prior to the meeting that he was mad. And I thought, yeah, David, we're all mad. I mean, hey, it's fantastic. Let's get to it. And so turned in there, watched what they were doing. And it was a well-orchestrated theatrical production. And it was all set. We have found, after I've watched this, I've listened to it. I didn't listen to every last part of it. I couldn't have stomached it. I probably would have puked. But after watching enough of it, I now know what all the problems of the city's water, all the brown water, all the outages, pumps down, no water. We now know who's to blame for all of it. According to the council, Laramie Hinkle. Laramie Hinkle, our utility director, that worked only 9 months, fired because he spoke up about the council raiding the water department for money, and with a position that's left the water department in where they cannot provide a quality service. He spoke up about that. They ignored it at first until the media got involved, and they couldn't ignore it anymore. And then they said, well, we're working on the problem. They wouldn't hardly talk to him until they were shamed finally at calling a meeting to talk to him. They just ignored him for a month or better. And then finally at the end, they fired him. They said there was no problem at first, then there might be a problem, then there is a serious problem, and Laramie is the problem, and they fired him. So now he's gone. And the problem has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, just like Laramie, just like me, just like Scott Paris before had said it would. And now a whole year later, more than a year later, they're bringing him up again and pointing to him that he's the problem for all our current problems right now. Well, I know the truth. I've told you nothing but the truth. Laramie hasn't told you anything but the truth either. I've been letting them lie. But now when you're going to take a good man and you're going to slander his character and you're going to make it impossible for him to just live his life in peace around here because you've made him out to be such a demon, I'm going to stand up. And I'm going to set a truth because I know where the demon really resides. And it's not in Laramie Hinkle. So I'm going to tell you Laramie's story. And I know it's going to be a while. Will you listen? Fine. But here's how I'm going to tell you the truth about Laramie Hinkle and what he did in 9 months he was here. I'm going to start before that. But then I'm going to show you where the real demon resides and how he gets away with doing what he's doing because of a man that Laramie rebuked, his subordinate that he rebuked for having an affair on company property, and he rebuked him with a fellow employee, and he told him, knock it off. What he should have done is fire that man at that time, but he didn't. The man was getting close to retirement. He had a family, and he didn't. He thought just the rebuke will straighten him out, knock off the affair, both of you. It was consensual. Both of you, knock off the affair, do what you're supposed to do. Try to keep the man from shame. Well, I'm going to name that man at the end of this video because that man has gone, and once again, I've overlooked it up to now, and he slandered and slandered before Laramie, but this time he won't just let it alone. He won't stop the line. He so wants to, it's so got a burr in his saddle being rebuked by Laramie, being scolded for having an affair, that he set out to ruin his life. So let me tell you the story. And I'm going to start when I first came into this council. I know, if you don't have any patience and you don't want to listen, turn it off. But don't write me and say, oh, your videos are too long. It's going to be long. You think I want to do this? I thought it was done. I'm doing it because the people need to know the truth. And here's the whole truth. No one's burning down anything, the city. The only thing we're burning down are the lies. No one's causing division. Only, I guess what division is when you point out they're lying to you. They're taking your money. I guess when you say that, it causes division. Liars divide from the truth. But now we're going to stick with the truth. So, I get elected into this town. I want to serve the people of this town. They appoint me as chairman over the utility committee. That means I'm overseeing the sewer and the water departments for the council in this city. So the men that I work with the closest are going to be the department head, which is Scott Paris, a man that is an engineer, that is certified in everything you can be certified in water distribution and in water filtration, a man that has 20 some years at that time of experience right here in this city, a man that everybody has the utmost respect for his understanding. Anybody in the business. I know he stepped on people's toes out there. They didn't get him to say what he wanted. He wouldn't write things off that were not right. He's followed the book. A good man, honest to the core. I've talked about him before. So he didn't know how far he could trust me because he's dealt with a lot of councils and a lot of mayors. And these people, let me just tell you, people that are in this politics, for the most part, I've discovered, I wouldn't have thought this, I would have thought they would have been in there to help and to serve their city because it affects them. But for the most part, they're in there, I've discovered, because either they find a way that if they can influence policy, they can make some money, or they just want to be somebody in somebody else's eyes. And it's sad. I don't know everyone really well on the current council, but the vast majority of the current council, that's exactly who they are. Anyhow, back then I met Scott. and I have to work closely with Scott. And Scott doesn't know, am I one of these guys? Am I one of these guys that just want to be someone or just kind of want to twist the rules to enrich myself? So Scott, he's kind of easy with me at first. He doesn't come out right and just show me everything and just start telling me what's really going on, because he doesn't know. Maybe I'm one of them. Maybe I'm one of these liberal establishment guys. In fact, I got elected. In fact, you can't get elected if you cross up the liberal establishment. So I got elected, and so he thought, well, maybe one of these guys, maybe he's one of them. Well, as time got on, and he got to see that I wanted to know what was going on, then Scott risked it, and he filled me in. And he and his second in charge, Zane Thompson, they took me all over this water system. I've seen it all. I mean, we spent a day in the truck. Zane had been up out on calls all night. Zane, in fact, when we went out touring the whole system, all over, I don't think he had slept more than a few hours in 3 days, because he was just chasing blown pipes and water problems. And so, but he wanted to be there. He wanted to be the one driving the vehicle. So Scott and I hopped in one of the city trucks, and we went everywhere. We were up at Stump House. We toured the old water plant up there. We toured all the dams up there, the old dams that are up there. We toured all the crossings of the sewers in Cane Creek that are such a disaster. We toured the recently old water plant that, is south of town there, that got its water out of the duck pond. We toured everything, and they showed me everything, and my mouth was just hanging open. Oh my, are we in trouble? So Tim Hall gets elected. He wants all the department heads, or not the department heads, he wants all the chairmen, the councilmen that are chairmen of the committees, to do a little video. So it was like January or February, right after Tim was elected. He said, Grant, I need you to do a video, just tell about kind of, state of the water situation. So I didn't want to just make everybody in the whole city completely depressed about our situation. So I went easy on it, but I gave the state of the water situation. And honestly, Scott Paris was there watching me. When I finished it, I said, Scott, did I tell this accurately? I do not want to say anything. I do not want to exaggerate anything. I don't want to, at the same time, overwhelm everybody. Was I fair in my assessment? He goes, that's how it is. Scott's a man of few words. He's an engineer. He's going to get the job done. Oh, I never even mentioned all the years he has spent representing Walhalla on the Sewer Commission, and then now Westminster on the Sewer Commission, and where he runs the utility department there. So that went on. Well, came about 6 months later, and they never liked, the mayor and the council didn't like what I said about the state of our water, but of course everyone's realizing it. I mean, you talk to the people at the ends of the line, they almost continuously have brown water. They're buying bottled water all the time. They pay for water, then pay for bottled water. They pay for expensive filters that constantly need replaced. So the people knew this, but we were going to pretend like we really didn't have much problem, and like we're getting a handle on this. We're doing all this work and everything. That's how the mayor was always like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. All stuff, all the big grant, the $10 million, all stuff Scott Paris got for us was all that stuff from the state. State vowed they're not going to give us any more because they know how we misspend down here, but that. So, anyhow, Scott Paris is working his job. All the guys in the crews, they're overwhelmed and overworked. They can't even get ahead. I've talked about this. Go back and watch my last videos. I don't want to repeat myself. Go back and watch them all. That explains all this. But they're overworked. They're strung out, thin, working at night, just fixing the busts in the pipe. And they can't even get ahead on the new stuff that will make us money because they're so overwhelmed. Well, long about this time, one of the councilmen, Keith Pace, had lied about the water and about Scott. And Scott kept his head low. He only had 5 years to go until he got to retire with state retirement. That's a good retirement. 28 years, he gets that in. He only has roughly 5 years to go. And yet this man is twisting to try to win an argument, to try to deny what everybody in the city knows. He lies. And he tells Scott said something Scott never said. And so I said, well, hold on a second. This was in a council meeting. The lying had happened before. But in a council meeting, let's get Scott here. He wasn't there right then. And they said, no, we don't have time for that. No, we don't have time. No, we don't have time to hear from him. Okay, he's the expert. I think we need to hear from the expert. No, it's not important, Well, an employee sitting there in the audience mouthed to me, I'm calling him. I knew he was working at that hour. He was still working because he was out on one of these breaks down in Avondale. And that employee told him, Scott, you got to get here because they're telling a story. Again, you got to get here. Grant needs you to just tell the truth because they're just saying, well, Grant, you say that, but what do you know? So I want to get the expert. Let's just get the expert. Let's just talk to the expert. He got in his truck, and fortunately, no one stopped him because he must have been doing 9-0 down 28 to get in. He walked in that room out of breath, straight to the microphone. We were still on topic by the grace of God because I think Sarai was monologuing. She does that every now and again. And so here he came in. Well, now he's in the room. They can't just say, no. So he comes in the room. He's asked to speak. And he starts setting the record straight. And he told Keith Peace, you didn't tell the truth about this. The mayor called him down for it. He was stopped. He was sent out. And the next morning, I got a call from Scott. And he goes, Grant, is this how it's going to be in the city? That you can't tell the truth or you get disciplined? Like, what are you saying, Scott? What happened? He goes, I've been called in by the administrator, and she has told me for my behavior, speaking up, I was insubordinate, and that I've been written up. He goes, is this how it's going to be? Because if this is how it's going to be, retirement or no retirement, they're just going to get rid of me, and I can't stay here. I got to quit. I go, Scott, come on, man. You put, 22, 23 years into this place, and you're going to quit? No way. He goes, Grant, they're not going to put up with the truth. They're not going to hear it. And now the mayor's gotten the administrator to discipline me. And I said, hold on. Let me go up. Let me go up and just talk to the administrator. Let me just see. So I drop what I'm doing. I go on up there. I find the mayor in the office with her. And I said, knocked on the door, and I said, hey, can I join? Come on in. I sit down there next to the mayor. They finished up what they were talking about right there. And I just said to the both of them, and I said, are we going to let our water director, which is no one around has his qualifications. No one in this county. Everybody looks up to him. No one has put the time in. No one knows. No one runs as much as they can on as little as this man. That's why Westminster grabbed him up the instant He quit here, went to Westminster, grabbed him up. He finished on a Friday here, went to work for them on a Monday. They knew who the guy was. So, are we going to let him go because of this? And the mayor slapped his leg and said, absolutely. I couldn't believe my ears. Absolutely. Because the man tried to tell the truth, and when he was talked over, he got a little louder, didn't yell, but got a little more pointed and forceful. No, you need to hear this. And then they gavelled him down. Absolutely. Well, Scott knew everything. Without a job, without any hopes of a job at that point, he put in his resignation. Now remember, I'm telling you this to get to Laramie Hinkle. Because you have to understand what has happened to understand what's coming with Laramie Hinkle. So, here I am. I'm the chairman of this committee. Zane, number 2, he jumps in the spot. Zane isn't that far from retiring either. He's in the same boat. 1 year different than retiring from Scott. He's scared for his job, so he jumps right in. Zane knows everything. Zane knows all the same truth. We rode around in that truck. Zane and Scott together. We're pointing everything out. So, Zane jumps into the spot. And they start looking for a utility director. Okay. So they're looking. Zane doesn't have the qualifications for it. So they start looking for a utility director. He's acting as one. And then it comes up, and they have some applicants. But the applicants really didn't get considered because Zane had met Laramie Hinkle. And Zane knew Laramie Hinkle is a kind of guy that you can count on to make it work when it's impossible, and it's a kind of guy you can work with. This is what would I say? This is a worker's boss. This isn't a guy that sits in an office and tells everybody else what to do. This is a guy that's there. Zane knew that. So he says, Laramie, you need to apply. Fine. The administrator, because I'm the chairman of that committee, Grant, do you want to be involved in the interview process and whatnot? I said, no. I said, if Zane wants him, whoever Zane wants, get whoever Zane wants. Zane's the one that knows. He's the one that's got to work with him. He'll be the one that has to work under him. Whatever Zane wants, I don't need to be there. And I also didn't want to be part of it because if they saw I liked this guy, I didn't know this guy, never heard the name before, didn't know his dad owned a Jeep dealership back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I didn't know that. It meant nothing to me. So it's just he knew this guy. Zane, that's fine with me. I don't need to be part of it. So they hired him. Because Zane wasn't going to work with anybody else. So they hired him. And he comes in. Well, now I'm going to have to get to know the fellow because I'm over that committee. But I don't go charging in to meeting him and filling him on what's going on because I thought if I do, he's a marked man. The mayor and the council will seek to get rid of him. If I go and say I want that guy hired, they're going to seek to get rid of him. So I just had no part. I just backed off and had no part. Didn't contact him. But the mayor did. The mayor took him out to lunch. And he kind of said, we're glad to have you, all the stuff that you'd expect. And then he started talking about me. You watch out for that guy. That guy right there, he's trouble. He's stirring up trouble. You just watch out. And then Keith Pace went after Laramie. He's in a cult. He's in a cult. You ever heard that about us? We're in a cult. Isn't that something? I don't know what cults are like. I believe the Bible as it's written, beginning to end. Went to Moody Bible Institute. You know, Worked for Paul Harvey. He hired me because I was a graduate of Moody Bible Institute. He hired me because I had an education in the Bible, not because I'd ever been in radio, because I had never been in radio. Knew nothing about it. He just wanted an honest man to work for him, an honest, hardworking man to work for him. And he knew that anybody that came out of that school and held those beliefs and held the Bible like that was his kind of man. So, but now I'm a cult member. Have you heard that? Oh, the council says it all the time to each other about the cult member. So, all the cult member. He's got grown children. Why? He's got 11 children. Can you believe that? I thought children were a blessing from the Lord. Evidently not. Lynn McLean. Why some of their children knocked on my door and put a flyer in my door that said that you can't, that we shouldn't vote for this annexation, that we should speak our minds about this annexation and stand up for our neighbors outside the town. She was calling us, my children, to be disciplined for knocking on her door. How can they do this and not be punished? This is the lies that they just go on and on and on. Anyhow, so Larrabee's fed all these lies. And so I don't have a lot to talk to. I figure he's going to come sooner or later. If this is a man worth his salt, he's going to find out everything that I knew, everything that Scott knew, everything that Zane knows, everything that all the water employees know. And we just had a peaceful relationship. Well, it came to he got hired in October of 24, January of 25, I was taken off overseeing the water. Oh, Tim Hall, he's always got some reason he did it, but he took me off of overseeing it. Fine. He has the prerogative to do that. He did it. Well, it's because the year before I went and spilled the beans on the water department, and he didn't want that happening again, especially if we're going to do state of the water department addresses. So things went on. I'm now over police and fire, and I was on those committees for them, getting to know all those guys, or getting to know their department heads for the most part. I got to know the firemen much closer. And then March, I guess, Laramie Hinkle came to see me because he had been watching everything and talking to the other guys in the water department. And they were telling him, Grant knows the truth. He's standing up for the truth. But the rest of the council won't. Well, Laramie, the budget was being made for that coming year, which had to be voted in by the end of June. And March, he came to me with the budget. I had it, with a letter that he was going to write. He was going to send to the entire council. And he said, I think I put it on one of my videos, the letter. You can read it out there. If not, I'll put it up so you can read it. He said, I want to know to make sure I'm saying this accurately because I know you know what's going on. And I said to him, I read it. It was extremely accurate. And I said, but you're not going to send this to them. And he goes, what do you mean? I am going to send it to them. He goes, I have to send it to them because they're asking me to sign off on a budget that if I do, well, I am putting my name behind how much money we need to run this plant, and it's not enough. People can get sick and people can die if we don't have the money we need to run this plant as it needs to be, to run this whole system. He goes, and they're forcing me to sign this and to go along with this budget. And Grant, he goes, I can't. Because now, he used to be in law enforcement. He goes, now I'm responsible. He goes, I'd be crazy to sign off on this. And I said, well, if you do it, they're going to fire you. And he said, Well, big deal. Let them fire me. I'm going to tell the truth. People depend on me. People's health depend on me. People's jobs depend on me telling the truth. And I said, well, okay, Laramie. We'll see. We'll see. Well, lo and behold, he sent that letter. He sent it to every department head. He sent it to the administrator, I believe the city clerk, got a copy, and he sent it to every councilman and the mayor, telling that this, what they said, the city had to run on in this budget, could not happen. You can't keep taking money from water for all your pet projects around town. It can't happen. We cannot provide the product people are paying for. I cannot provide a safe product. You know what the council did? They ignored it. They said nothing about it. Not one called him. They just ignored it. And they're just going to pass the budget. They're just going through the budget anyhow. Well, as you know, everything in the city on the water kept falling apart. Kept falling apart. Kept falling apart. Kept falling apart. Well, the news media, someone called Fox Carolina, and the news media heard, man, there are serious problems. And I guess they start looking at Facebook, and everyone's putting up the brown water. They're turning on their sinks and watching the brown water. They're turning on their bathtubs and they're watching the brown water. It's not like Facebook is, these people are lying. These people got their names on their accounts. You can look up and see they've got this water and they're putting it out. So Fox Carolina comes and they interview some of these people. A lot of people are scared. They wanted to interview a lot more people. A lot of people were scared. They're like, Grant, you don't know these people. I talked to them. Tell them, talk to these people because they'll call me because they trust me. Because they know I'm telling the truth. And I said, well, talk to the TV station. Tell them then. TV station wants to talk to you. They go, Grant, no, I can't. You don't know these people. They're talking about the liberal establishment here. I got kids in school. I got this. I got that. You don't know these people. I can't. Fine. I don't know I'm learning these people. I'm learning these people. So anyhow, finally, they come to me. Fox Carolina comes to me. And they said, hey, we got your name. People we've talked to said they ought to talk to you. We know you're a councilman. I just got done with 3 hours interviewing the mayor. I would like to interview you if you will talk on camera. I said, I absolutely will talk on camera. Come on over. They came over. The reporter got the cameras rolling, sat me down right out here on the porch, started talking, and I'm telling her the truth. And she holds, I told some of this in another video I had, she drops her head in her hands, Alexa Urbach, she drops her head in her hands and she goes, hold on, turns off the camera. She goes, I'm so confused. And I said, well, you spent 3 hours talking to the mayor, didn't you? And she says, you're right. And I said, well, that's why you're confused. I go, what I'm telling you sounds nothing like what you heard from him, does it? And she goes, nothing is the same. Nothing is the same. And I said, well, instead of believing me, would you like to talk to our utility director? And she said, could I? And I said, why not? So I called up Laramie. I said, Laramie, you got Fox Carolina reporter here. They'd like to interview you on camera if you're willing to speak up. Now remember, everyone's been ignoring him in the council. He said, I'll tell them anything they want to know. They brought him over here, turned that camera on. Oh, I wish they'd release every last bit of that interview. But, they got a short little snippet. Well, now, once he hit Fox Carolina, they couldn't ignore the problem anymore. So, here we come up to we have committee meetings where the different department heads come and talk to the whole council about what's going on in their department. But the only ones that can call the meeting of their specific committee to hear from their department head is the department chair. Department chair or a majority of the people on that committee. So there's 3 people on that committee. So if the department chair doesn't call it, there's 3 people and the mayor. But if the department head doesn't call it, the other 2 can call it. Well, I was one of the others, and Sarai was one of the others, and Kenny Johns was the department chair. Laramie Hinkle's on TV, our utility director, saying the system's a mess. You can't run it safely for the money they're giving it. They want to take more. Danger, danger, warning, warning, Will Robinson. We go into this next committee hearing. He's done this. And Cat can't get Kenny Johns to call the meeting. He won't call the meeting. He won't put Laramie Hinkle out there so Laramie Hinkle can tell the council and everybody that showed up for the meeting what's really going on. So I went to Sarai. Sarai, hey, help me call this meeting. No, Grant, I really don't want to do that. You don't want to call the expert? He's on TV. You don't want to call the expert? No. So wouldn't do it. Well, lo and behold, in a meeting shortly thereafter, Josh Holliday called him up. He was just running the meeting, and he just called them up. And now he's spoken, and now they can't ignore it anymore. So now the mayor's line goes, yeah, we got some problems. We're working on them. He said that early on. I told him, hey, when you come in, you need to admit, we got problems. Just tell everybody we're going to get it fixed. He did do that. But then he went and did the same thing they were doing before, robbing the water department for money. Nothing was changed. Giving money to the civic auditorium, giving money to these different places instead of fixing the water department. So Laramie got to speak, people showing up at meetings, and now he just couldn't have that. Now every time something busts, and stuff was busting all over the place. Hey, remember when the murder trial up at the courthouse had to be paused because the courthouse couldn't get water to it? Now we've just had the school couldn't get water to it. Laramie said all this stuff was going to happen, but Fox Carolina was in the courthouse filming the murder trial, and all of a sudden they all had to go home because they couldn't get water. Fox Carolina is like, holy cow. And they just keep on filming. On to the next place, on to the next place, on to the people are talking, we're showing. Laramie takes them out. Shows them they won't buy spare parts, so they won't give us the money that we can buy spare parts for the water plant. Takes them out. You've seen it. Look on my channel right here. You'll see the shed out there, and it's nearly empty. Had a tractor parked in it there because there's no water parts in it. The things that were in there wasn't even parts for the plant. The plant takes big parts. Remember when the pumps went down? When the 2 big pumps went down? You'd have pump. At least one pump, you'd have it there. You'd have compressors in there. You'd have motors in there. These are big things that go right there in that building that Scott Paris had built to take the parts. Go ask Scott Paris, he'll tell you. He had it built for those things, for the parts for the waters plant. So Laramie says, come look at this. It's empty. We don't have parts. Proved it when the pumps went down. And now you can't. We were on one pump getting water from Seneca on one pump, praying to God that thing wouldn't fail until these things got fixed because we didn't have the spare parts. Yeah, but the mayor did. The mayor did the most amazing thing. He always got the administrator to do what he wanted because he always leaned on her. Oh man, that woman worked weekends. That woman worked all the time. She was at his beck and call, and she was scared to death. She'd never had a windfall making this kind of money. This is what she wanted to do. This is what she was schooled to do. And she got a chance to be administrator of a city. And man, making the kind of money she was making, here we go. But the mayor knew, man, she needed that job. And he leaned on her and he leaned on her and he leaned on her. And I don't think she was a liar to start out, but she eventually sold her integrity because how hard he leaned on her. She was so afraid of him. In fact, I'll tell you one time in here about this time, Mayor Hall, this is how he did. Danny Edwards didn't like him before him, threatened people's jobs. He met at a Friday, I believe it was a Friday, maybe not. It was a staff meeting. It was not a staff meeting, it was a department head meeting. One that Laramie wasn't at because he was downstate taking care of the city's business. So he went in there with the department heads in there and he threatened them all. He threatened them all. Ask the department heads. You better wait until maybe I get sued over this because then they'll have to speak. Because they'll be under subpoena. They maybe won't speak to you right now because they're scared of their job. They're just trying to get to retirement. But he threatened them all. If anybody goes talking to the media, you better not talk to the media. You just better not talk to the media. You better not talk to anybody else. In fact, they even had sent flyers around. This was even recently in the past month. They did it again. Sent flyers around to all the departments. If anybody comes asking you about what's going on here, do not talk to them. You are required not to talk to them. Even if a council member should come, a council member that is to oversee the workings of this city. If a council member comes to you and starts talking to you about your job or what's going on, do not talk to them, refer them to me. That's what the administrator sent out a memo to everyone. I got a copy of this. I got all the employees know about this. That's how the intimidation runs in this city. That's how Tim Hall does it now. Danny Edwards did it just the same. Tim Hall's just a little more clever. Spins it a little better. So, where were we then? So it's out. It's on the media. And, he shows this. That's where it was. Sorry. He shows this, the empty garage. They put it. Fox Carolina puts it right on the media there. They show this empty garage. And they say, they don't have parts for all this. It's truth. They don't have parts for all that water plant. The next thing you know, Tim Hall is telling everybody and broadcasting and taking pictures. And they did show this again at this meeting just this week, just last night. They showed it at this meeting again. So we do have a parts room. We got all kinds of parts. Laramie Hinkle is lying. Here's where our parts room is. He showed you an empty garage. He didn't show you where we keep all the parts. And they took you down to the shop down here. You know where the shop is down here? It's where the garbage trucks all are kept on one side of it and whatnot south of town. And then on the other side, it's where the crews meet and have their equipment that take care of the lines, that take care of the sewer lines, that take care of the water lines. It's the distribution part of it. The water plant is out there past West Union. That's where the water plant is. That's where their parts would be if they had any. All of the parts that they went and showed were parts that were used on like your taps that you put in the ground. You know, all the parts are kept in the end of a trailer. It's so small. You couldn't fit the water pumps. You couldn't fit the motors. You couldn't fit the things from the water plant in this small. Half of the trailer is their parts. That's it. And I've seen it when that thing's hardly had anything in it. But then you get a new budget and they quick buy everything they can, and so they can operate as long as they can until they run out. But he took it when it was more filled up and showed it here. And the mayor's like, what? We got parts? Look at all the parts. He knew he was lying. He knew Laramie hadn't lied. He knew that the water plant didn't have parts. But he was showing all these parts over here. And why was that? How did the mayor, that really has a hard time hitting his fanny with both hands, knew about that parts room out there that had nothing to do with the water plant. But how did he even know about that? And this is where it all comes down. Because Zane Thompson, who is now Laramie's second in command, the guy that handpicked Laramie for the job, the guy that went with Laramie, and man, they were on the phone all the time together, getting the city's business done. But when Zane got caught in an affair with one of the other water department employees, and Laramie scolded him for it and said, "You can't do that anymore. Knock it off." And because Laramie cared about his wife and cared about her significant other and didn't want to expose him to all the shame, all he did was scold him and said, "Knock it off, do your job." And Zane got bitter. And the mayor found Zane, and he started leaning on Zane just like he always leaned on Celia. And Zane just kept being the guy that said, "That's right, Mayor. Isn't this department, isn't this thing over here where you got all the parts?" "Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor, it's all over here." "What about that over there?" "We don't use that, Mayor. We use this here." Mayor knows better, but he still went along with it. A lie. And then, when it came, those two big pumps went down at the water plant. Zane was already on the out. Everyone's ignoring him. Can't call a meeting. They're just looking for a reason to fire Laramie. And we are just days away from him being fired. He's getting paid to just basically show up. He still went out and worked. I don't know why he did, but he still went out and worked. But when those two pumps went down, Zane supposedly had it because they weren't talking to Laramie. Chairman Kenny Johns was not talking to Laramie. And so, okay, Zane, Laramie just checks in. Zane's bitter as can be at Laramie, and he just checks in with him. "Okay, Zane, you got this worked out. You know where you're going to get the pumps taken out and get them repaired and all this." Zane's I got a guy and here, and I've done business with him, I guess, before, and it's going to cost this much, and it's going to take, we were talking in months, lots of weeks at least, to get him back. And Laramie's like, and he's going easy on Zane because he knows how bitter Zane has been with him. Zane was cussed him up to this time already, and he just kept letting it be. Should have fired him, but he knew Zane wasn't far from retirement. So, right there, when they're talking about it, out there in front of the pumps with Zane's crews, Laramie's crews, standing around, going to work on this with a contractor that Laramie pulled in. He goes, "Zane, I got all this paperwork, what you're doing. The guy you want is way too much, and he's way too slow. I got a guy over here. We're going to bring him in here. He's going to get this done way faster and cheaper." And when I'm talking cheaper, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars. Zane had a meltdown standing next to the pumps with all those employees looking on and that contractor. Cussed Laramie, had a meltdown. "You can't do it, I'm doing it," and all this. All this meltdown. Crazily so. Laramie said, "I'm still the utility director. This is how we're going to do it." That contractor right there pulled it. We got the first one replaced in days. I mean, days. It was incredible. The next one, I don't think it went 2 weeks. Had the next one repaired. The guy was fantastic. Laramie was dead on. He knew. Because Laramie's in this business. He's a businessman. And then, because now the council's got egg on its face, the council's got to go, and Mayor Tim Hall, he's got to put a happy face on this whole thing. "Oh, we got them fixed. We got them fixed in record time. Oh, they did a great job. And this is a rare thing that this ever would happen, but we fixed it, and we fixed it in record time. Way to go, Zane Thompson. You were the man. And Zane Thompson took the applaud and didn't say anything. When all of his employees, me, the mayor, we knew Laramie Hinkle did it. Even when he knew they're firing him and don't want him around, he still stepped up and took care of it and got it done. Zane at that time lost the respect of every single water department employee in our town, because they all knew they were there. At least all the ones that were there. The ones that weren't there got heard about it, I'm sure. And they saw him take it. Such was his bitterness with Laramie. And so it went on. The next slide, the sludge ponds. Remember the sludge pond? Laramie was on TV for the sludge pond. He had convinced the council, look, it's going to cost us all these hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We know that. Scott told us that before Laramie was on, to empty these sludge ponds and to get this all hauled off. Laramie comes in because Laramie is an excavator, because he's worked in the fields he's an expert heavy equipment operator and has done all this all over. He's worked in the oil fields in Oklahoma. He's worked in the oil fields in North Dakota, and he's done it here. All kinds of developments and everything and projects done right here. He knows what can be done with heavy equipment. He goes, if you will buy me an excavator, we can excavate that $200,000, buy it an excavator, and we will excavate this thing, and we'll get it, and we will do it for the price of that, and it's not going to cost us all this. But what's more than that, we will use that excavator because the sides of the banks need cleaned up at Cane Creek. They've been needing cleaned up. Zane and Scott showed me this long before Laramie was ever around. They had no means of doing it, but the banks were eroding. That means the sewer lines were getting ready to fall in. They were tipped. The piers holding sewer lines across the creek were tipped like this. And so it's like, we got to fix this, and we got to get all the creek banks, because they're eroding the pylons and the piers and everything that hold them up. So he says, then what we're going to do is we're going to take that excavator, instead of paying millions of dollars to get this done, I'm going to apply for a grant to get this done, because it got so much worse during Helene. Right before that happened, right before Laramie came in here, surely the hurricane made this far worse. So we're going to apply for a grant. It was Laramie, from beginning to end, applied for the grant. And all the council had to do was vote on it. The administrator had to arrange it and vote on it, but it was 100% Laramie Hinkle that was getting this grant to pay for all this. What was it? Finally ended up $2.48 million to do this, Laramie Hinkle. But he goes, with that excavator, we're going to take that too, and we're going to do this work ourselves. So we're going to get a grant to do this, but then we're going to be able to get the money for doing this, because they're not caring who's doing it. It's just that it gets done, and he will do it because he's an excavator. And you're like, it's brilliant. It's stinking brilliant. Well, you know what happened? We had to have a meeting to pass that grant, to accept that grant of all that money. They blew the deadline on it. Laramie kept calling me. He's already fired by this point. Or was he fired, or within a day of firing? I think it was, no, he was not fired yet. He was fired, he didn't know it. That was it. She had sent an email, but she'd already locked him out of his office, the administrator. So he didn't even know he was fired. But he had been fired at this time. And so what he did is we had to have an emergency meeting to pass and accept this grant. But Laramie kept checking with me. Grant, haven't you passed this yet? The deadline is this day. The deadline is this day. Grant, haven't you voted on it? You got to vote on it. You're going to lose all that money. I go, Laramie, why do you care? You're getting fired, man. He goes, don't let them lose that money. They need that money to repair all these banks and all that. And so on the very day that it ran out, she wasn't paying attention. And on the very day, finally, she got word, it's got to do it. I think maybe I was the one that said it. And she arranged the council meeting, a special council meeting, to vote to accept that grant. We were even late, but she called and said, will you still let us have the grant? It's hard getting council together. And they said, yes, if you voted on it today, even though you can't get word to us today, we'll accept it. And they did. And then they went and said, oh, we just want to thank the hard work of all these people, all our staff that worked to get this grant done. And I said, I was still on council then, I said, is this the grant that Laramie Hinkle arranged? And she said, it was a team effort. Kind of hard to fire a guy that just got you a $2.48 million grant and that just fixed your water pumps. It's kind of hard to hate on that guy, but they were. So, come to this meeting here that they had yesterday. And they want to tell you that Laramie tricked the council getting that excavator. He tricked them. He wasted $200,000 getting that excavator. That excavator can't do the job, can't scoop out the sludge in there. And then we have no means to move an excavator that big to go do the banks and everything. So they're going to go pay the full all the money, $2.5 million, to try to hire another company to do this when we can do this in-house for just a fraction and do more of it, actually. Use the money, but do more of it. Get it great, just like you planned with that one excavator. But they went on last night. David Underwood went on why this excavator can't even be used on those sludge ponds. Can't even reach across those sludge ponds to get the sludge out. Why this excavator we don't even have any equipment that can move that excavator to do anything else. Who do you hear that from? David doesn't know. Where do you hear that from? Zane Thompson. Remember? The guy that's better because he was told to knock off his affair with a coworker, his subordinate. So anyhow, let me fill you in something on excavating, because I own an excavator. I excavate. I'm not the expert that Laramie Hinkle. I've worked with Laramie Hinkle. I've worked a lot with Laramie Hinkle. Let me tell you, he could brush your teeth with a 21-ton excavator. He could do anything with that. The thing is, Zane Thompson couldn't do it. But they're firing the guy. He didn't know he was leaving when the excavator was coming in. So he was coming in with the excavator. Laramie could have done. You don't have to reach with the whole way across the sludge pond. You don't even have to reach halfway across the sludge pond. It's sludge. You reach in, smooth bottom bucket, you got to be able to feel the difference of the bottom of that pond and the sludge. Laramie Hinkle could do it. Could I do it? No. Can Zane Thompson do it? No. Can anyone else do it that we have? No. But Laramie Hinkle could do it because he's an expert. And that's why I hired it, because he was going to do it. He's not one of these bosses that sits there. He's going to do it. And so he goes, and he would have scraped that out. And then once you scrape it out, what does sludge do? It goes like that, and you scrape it out, and it goes like that, and you can reach it. You go around the pond. He'd had all the sludge out of that pond for just a tiny little bit, and we got an excavator. What a brilliant idea. We get it for a fraction of the cost, and we get an excavator too. No wonder he's been successful in business. I guess he learned it from his dad. But so anyhow, the whole deal with, oh, but we don't have a truck to even move it. Yeah, you don't have a truck to move it, but Laramie Hinkle does. He was going to use his equipment because we didn't have it. He would have used his truck, his trailer. He's got 2 excavators bigger than that one. He's got one that is dwarfs that thing 5 times. He can't move that one. He's got to hire that one. But this excavator, because he moves his other one. In fact, let me tell you this. You know how we sold the old water plant out here? That thing's a mess. It needed cleaned up. Nobody's going to buy that thing until it gets cleaned up. Well, so Laramie was the one that got that deal going. Hey, you want to sell it as council? I know how to get it sold. So he goes over to the realtor he wants to use. I could tell his name. You'd all use it, but so he goes over there. He find me a buyer. This is what we need on it. Found a buyer, but you're going to have to clean that thing up. Man, closing date is coming, and we got to get this done. And everybody's out there repairing lines, and we can't afford to ask someone to go clean it up. So Laramie Hinkle, this is before they got the other excavator here. He takes his own excavator out there on the weekend with his teenage boys, and they spend weekends cleaning up that old water plant. He's not getting paid for this. Those boys aren't getting paid for this, and he's using his equipment, his big dump truck, his big trailer, his big excavator to clean it all up. And he did, so they could sell that property, so the city could sell that property and hopefully just have a little bit more money. Do you think the money owned by the water plant? You think, owned by the water system, wouldn't it be? You think that money went back to the water? No, it went in the general fund. They robbed that money. They sold off that property and robbed that money from the water on top of the money they robbed in the budget every single year. Laramie still helping them out. Still helping them out. Still helping them out. And then David Underwood, I like David. David's been my friend, but David's a coward. And so when Tim Hall leans on David, David gets scared. He is the biggest coward when it comes to facing the liberal establishment. He just so wants to be liked. That's why he's just the best servant. He will come anywhere you call him day or night. He's going to show up. He's going to repair your water line. He's great for that. God bless David. But man, when that liberal establishment start pushing back on David, he just gets scared to death. I told him this to his face when we were on council together. And now I watched that meeting last night, and he just repeated all the lies, the mayor, all the lies that Zane said, all this about Laramie. Oh, he deceived us for the excavator. Oh, he deceived us about the sludge ponds. Oh, he deceived the television station about the shed that they kept that they could keep the big things in for the water plant. Oh, we've been deceived. This is why we have these problems. I let it go the first time the mayor started spouting that crap because I didn't want to shame Zane. Because I knew to fight the mayor's lies, I was going to have to expose what Zane was doing underhanded behind his boss's back and why he was doing it. Because you never would have believed it if I didn't tell you what he had done. But Zane, when you got up there and lied again, you lied again last night, and you didn't care about a good man's reputation. You didn't care. And you threw him under the bus again. Oh, God forgive you. God forgive you. And David, maybe you got used by those people, but being a coward, because you know all you had to do was ask. You've heard me talk about this stuff. All you had, and you got intimidated. Oh, it's time. Reach out to God. Say, God, save me from being the coward I am. I understand it. We all understand it. We're all sinners. We all have a problem. But if you sit there and you don't admit when you're wrong, and then you let a demon-possessed man like Tim Hall, and yes, the man has got a demon, and you let a demon-possessed man like Tim Hall run you around, what won't you do? You want to know the truth on this? If they'll talk to you. You talk to the water department employees. You talk to any employee in this city, and they'll tell you what I'm saying. And I'd call them all to stand up and tell the truth. But you know what? It's that real hard for them to do that because they're raising kids and they're raising families. And they'd lose a job just like that because that is the spiteful, wicked people that we have running this city. Go ahead and hate me. I don't care. All I care about is the truth. By the grace of God, I used to be just like them. I was just like them. Thank God he had mercy on my soul. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.